This is from earlier. This is ML7 and Alec Dawson, the lead hero designer, talking. ML's at Blizzard right now for the Creator Summit. I chose not to go because I don't really like traveling, and this is the year I'm gonna start saying no to things and kind of taking care of myself, because I've been kind of just hardcore grinding Overwatch and content for the last couple years, really hard. So this is probably the first year I'm gonna let off the gas a little bit. So I decided not to go. They were very kind enough to invite me though, and I do appreciate that. But apparently this is pretty juicy, and I was gonna put this off to tomorrow to watch, but apparently it's good enough to watch today. There's also another piece with Gavin later, but I think I'll save that for tomorrow. So let's go.
Hey everybody. We can't hear them. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, now it should be working. Hey.
Can they hear me?
Yeah, I think they can hear you now. Louder. What do you mean louder?
Louder?
It's good.
Me louder?
A little low? No, it's good. It's perfect.
Okay,
I said it's perfect.
right.
Okay, it's perfect. Just give me one
Yeah,
second.
dude.
Okay, looking good. So how you doing?
Good.
Okay, I'm gonna make some adjustments on my OBS side because that was probably their mic check, and it's gonna be a little bit low. So I need to make a note of what I have at my OBS. All right, this is as loud as I can make it for you guys. So I hope this is good.
Doing good?
Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm doing amazing. I love streaming from here, you know, and I've been like gathering some data on breakfast. So I gotta ask you, yeah, on breakfast.
Okay.
What is your go-to breakfast?
Oh, I'm either a protein shake or like an egg scramble type of person.
You can't go wrong with eggs. Eggs, chat.
Yeah.
Eggs is really good. They're really good.
What did you say? What's yours?
I love a piece of pastry with a coffee.
That's
you know,
nice.
just the combination.
Yes, it's a good.
I didn't think ML7 would be a pastry guy.
Think about, do you prefer sunny weather or cold weather?
I'm gonna mute alerts for a bit because alerts will be giga loud.
Nice out
Okay.
usually. That's why a lot of us are here in California. You know, escaping some of those harsh winters. But it's raining, so I'm sorry for that the rain has come with your arrival.
Yeah, I think I kind of like brought the rain.
The European thing?
It's
Yeah.
okay. I like the rain. I like it a lot.
When I was in Portugal, I used to love
How
tapas.
was season 9? Do you like it so far? How it's going and stuff?
I think the team's really excited about Season 9 so far, and the result it's had. We've been seeing a bunch of people jump back into the game, especially like do all their comp placements and everything, and the meta's been shaken up, kind of like on its head in terms of what we've seen over the lifespan of Overwatch 2. This is probably the biggest change in what heroes are viable and what's actually popping up.
Which is good.
Like true dive comps are showing up. We haven't seen that in quite some time. So it's been just an awesome time for the game. I think everyone's really we're seeing all the new things of ranked and competitive in the system there, and I think that's been doing really well. So yeah, we're really excited. There's some things we want to tweak, the next few weeks on the hero side, but I think overall it was a really successful patch. We're glad that people are sort of seeing the vision for the puzzle pieces that were all coming together. Right?
Have you played since the season got
Hang on.
released?
Of course, I did.
I'm gonna pause. I'm going to close my Steam so it doesn't have little things just popping up constantly in the bottom left-hand corner. Sorry, Siegel. Thanks for the reminder. All right, let's continue.
All my placements over the weekend.
What did you place?
Well, I'll talk about where I did five.
Okay,
it was like
okay.
5 and 5, 6 and 4, 7 and 3. So like a little bit above average, right? But it was a good time.
Let me just adjust this 1 second. Let me just put it. I think I'm gonna put it like this. Okay, it's better in full screen, I guess, for us.
I'm gonna be kind of covering ML, but you guys know ML, so
Cool.
it's fine.
1 second. I'm a hashtag professional content creator, Alex, so of course everything's gonna be like a little bit scuffed. Okay, this is looking great now.
Okay.
Looking great. You wanna dive into the questions? I have like
let's do it.
some.
Yeah.
Okay, so first I wanna ask you, who are the top 3 heroes by win rate in every role in season 9?
Let's take a guess. Across all ranks, Zen, Brig, because Brig was number 1 already, so I'm gonna assume Brig's still up there, even though people don't think so. Lucio is probably up there too, but I don't want to go 3 supports. 3 supports is too much. I'm gonna guess 1 from each. I'm gonna go Lucio or Brig, because I don't think most players know how to play Zen that well. Soldier. Oh, that last one's tough. Because I want to say Ball, but that's top level play. Most people don't know how to play Ball. I want to say Orisa, because Orisa, most people know how to play. Orisa's still pretty decent. Ramatra could be up there too. This is actually a really tough one. I actually don't know off the tank roll. Like average, top level play, Ball, for sure. Maybe number 2 is Diva. You know what? It's going to be Diva. I'm going to say Diva, Soldier, and Lucio across all ranks. High level play, it's probably like Zen or Lucio, Tracer or Widow for sure, and then Diva or Ball. Let's see.
In every role in season 9. Yeah, so it changes a little bit depending on like where you look at it.
Yeah.
Looking at, what we classify as like metal ranks / like Masters Plus. Those are usually how we segment out some of our rank segmentations when we're actually looking at the data in that way. So we're talking about tank. It's like Diva doing very, very well across the board at both rank thresholds. Right, we see Winston doing well at both rank thresholds as well. I think it differs a little bit. There's like Junker Queen does a little bit better at the lower ranks, but then at the higher rank Sigma does better. So those are some things we see on the tank side.
And everyone got really mad at my tier list. Didn't say Junker Queen's not good. I enjoy playing Junker Queen, but she's just not as good as some of the other picks.
So Diva, Winston, Sigma, Junker Queen, CSC.
And then someone comes to chat, but I want to give on Junker Queen.
I'm kind of surprised with Winston.
Although, to be fair, if I could remake my tier list right this second, I'd probably make a couple adjustments, to be fair. In the last couple days, I've been like, you know what, I'd change that.
I always thought that in the first couple of days was kind of bad.
I will, if there's a patch tomorrow, I'll probably redo the tier list a little bit.
Been recently seeing him being played a lot. I can definitely see why he's working. Just 3-2-1, jump in, not waiting, just to punish the backline.
Yeah, a lot of the mobility heroes are overall doing well, right? I think a lot of that's the DPS passive and how they can avoid it. Things of that nature, Zenyatta, and how they can get rid of
I would
Discord.
not put Reaper lower.
So
that was not one of the ones I was thinking of.
Key in season 9 so far.
Especially in the tank role.
Especially in the tank role.
Especially in the tank role.
Sorry,
so,
I'm going to back him up. I was reading chat and I was zoned out.
I'm kind of surprised with Winston. Like I always thought that in the first couple of days was kind of bad, but I've been recently seeing him being played a lot. I can definitely see why he's working. Just 3-2-1, jump in, not waiting, just to punish the backline.
Yeah, a lot of the mobility heroes are overall doing well, right? I think a lot of that's the DPS passive and how they can avoid it. Things of that nature, Zenyatta, and how they can get rid of Discord.
He's laughing.
So like mobility is.
He's laughing at Zenyatta.
Especially in the tank.
Did you see it?
Yeah, especially in the tank role. So we've actually seen Ball rise quite a bit too, right? We're seeing some compositions come together for him, but just in terms of like how his performance is doing, he's on the up, and we've seen that not just at the higher ranks. We're seeing that actually happen a little bit at the lower ranks too.
Every work.
Interesting.
I think this is the first bold meta we've ever had since Overwatch 2 got released.
Yeah.
So this is what it took for him to like be played a lot.
Yeah, a big shakeup, right? And then you move over to damage. It's like Genji, Tracer, Pharah.
Pharah?
Yeah, Pharah is actually doing pretty well after the rework.
I told you Farah felt a lot better, and I think people were sleeping on her.
And Echo is up there, depending on what range threshold.
Echo, you know what's funny? Is Echo I didn't think was that good. And Samito in our like group chat for the group of podcasts, same thing, was saying it was really bad. But I think he said like yesterday or today, he's like, I think I put Echo way too low. And it's funny because I've only seen a couple really good Echoes. I don't see that many of them. That's probably one of the ones I'd bump up a tier.
You're looking at. But Genji and Tracer are
They're just amazing.
They're doing very well. And we're especially seeing that as we get, higher and higher play. Tracer especially.
Tracer's dominating
right now.
So the higher we go, Tracer is just incredibly strong, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, she's, while you can hit her more easily, she has a bit more health, so she can sustain a little bit more and survive some of that damage. Also, she does benefit from that projectile change in terms of like how she can pepper folks. So she's doing pretty well. Genji, I think one of the things that we were really happy with was that the change we made to Blade. So we actually upped the speed on it between each swing, and that's been doing well
faster.
with his neutral. And he doesn't necessarily need Nano Blade to get some of those.
That's really interesting.
Those successive ultimates that they had in the past, right? So it feels a little bit better in the neutral than it did previously. But yeah, those two in particular are doing quite well.
And what about supports?
Supports. I think the overall one there is Zen and Lucio are both doing pretty well at both rank thresholds, no matter where
What do you know?
Zen and Lucio are like the top supports.
They're doing quite well, yeah. And and
know?
we're seeing competitions start to sort of be around either of them. They don't get played together as much, but we see like you might see Moira be the third in that lineup, right? Moira's appearing a lot with Lucio, sometimes appearing with some other heroes too, but she's actually probably third. And I think one thing that we didn't expect was how good she would be at higher ranks. She's been on the rise, just overall population-wise.
Sorry, who is it? I was messaging Retro really quick to make sure this gets posted after my bed.
Start to sort of be around either of them. They don't get played together as much, but we see like we might see
Who's
more
mo-
a bit better in the neutral than it did previously. But yeah, trolling doesn't necessarily need Nano Blade to
Sorry,
get
I
some of
apologize.
so it's the successive ultimates that they had in
Moira?
the past, right? So it feels a little bit better in the neutral than it did previously. But yeah, those two in particular are doing quite well.
And what about supports?
Supports. I think the overall
Moira's third.
One there's Zen and Lucio are both doing pretty well.
I'm not
at both ranked thresholds.
completely surprised by that,
Zen
but
Lucio are like the top supports.
They're doing quite well, yeah. And and we're seeing competitions start to sort of be around either of them. They don't get played together as much, but we see like we might see Moira be the third in that lineup, right? Moira's appearing a lot with Lucio, sometimes appearing with some other heroes too, but she's actually probably third. And I think one thing that we didn't expect was how good she would be at higher ranks. She's been on the rise, just overall population-wise, but the higher rank she's
first day I
sustaining,
slept on Moira, and after like 2 or 3 days,
and
I was like,
that
whoa.
isn't something we've seen in quite a while, right? We've always seen her do pretty well, like at lower ranks, but she's doing pretty well at the top two.
Yeah, I feel
Survivability.
like I personally enjoy Moira metas and stuff, and in the first couple of days, I think that people were trying out the infamous Lucio ZENYATTA team comp kind of back and stuff, but right now I'm seeing like a ton of Lucio Moira, a lot of players are just locking them in, and I'm seeing like the potential over there, because there's so much damage from everywhere, and Moira can stay alive for a long period, and I feel like with Moira, you need a lot of elements to make her being played that much in higher ranks, because she doesn't have that much utility, but right now with so much damage everywhere, I guess she just works,
Yeah.
It's awesome. Who did you expect to perform better, and who did you expect to perform worse in Season 9?
Who do we expect to perform better? I would say one of the more surprising drop-offs for us was like the beam damage heroes in particular, like Zarya, Symmetra, and Mei in the sense.
Did you guys hear that? Dude, my neighbors downstairs are fucking nuts. I don't know what's wrong with them. I've never heard anyone in my whole life slam doors that hard in my whole life. Dude, what is their problem? Like, dude, do you think someone's breaking in half the time? Like, I know how thick that door is. It's not that thick. Just jump real quick. Oh, dude. We could do some damage with that.
So, if you look at it, they don't really get a ton of the projectile size changes as other hero classifications may. If you're hitting the shots, it didn't give you that much more. You're already kind of hitting it. So some of their damage is not getting the throughput that it got previously. Sometimes they don't necessarily have enough ammo to actually finish off some of the kills. So I would say they're getting the least out of the big shakeup.
Out of the changes, the general ones.
And overall, their
What did they
accuracy
say?
numbers reflect that as well.
Oh, beam
Like,
heroes.
They may be getting 2 to 3% accuracy up, while some heroes may be getting 6 to 7. Right? So they're not getting as much overall from the whole package of what changed in Season 9. So those heroes in particular,
like
I think the
Zarya,
drop-off was a little
Sim.
bit harsher than we expected. I think one hero that's doing better than we expected is Pharah. I think it was going to actually take a lot longer for folks to adjust to Pharah, because it does feel very different. I don't know if have you had the chance to play it yet?
Yeah. So fast. I feel like it would take a long time to learn the mechanics and stuff. It just move all over the place. But I guess players are just picking up on her really fast.
May too. Yeah, you're right.
And we're really excited about that. It's almost like we're like waiting to see the full potential of it, but players are already playing Pharah at a very high level.
Is it
right?
across all ranks? Like
Yeah.
So it's not only like high.
Yeah,
That's
it was
very
one of those-
interesting.
It was very interesting. We
I
actually
felt
didn't
like Pharah was
see-
getting slept on.
She's almost like a completely different hero in terms of her mobility kit now, in terms of like the uptime and things like that. But we didn't see a big change in her performance. We did get some things to her. She has faster, the missile speed and things like that. But overall, we just expected a longer lead up time in terms of players getting used to her than what we are seeing. So I think internally it was like, oh, this is a giant shift for Pharah, and it really is. It is in terms of like how she's piloting, and she's not playing that skybox Pharah. You're not really seeing her as much with Mercy anymore.
Yeah, you don't need that Mercy with her.
Yeah, and we might just we thought that was
the
just
Mercy
gonna
though
take
is
more
still good.
time for folks to understand like how to play Pharah and what to play around Pharah, but it seems like they're adjusting pretty quickly.
All right, chat. Can you get some W's in the chat for the Pharah rework? I've got to be honest. Like we've seen like a lot of Pharah, and I feel like she does have a good impact for me. I'm not seeing her that much in my games, but when I'm seeing her, I don't know. I feel like She
The
has
few
the
times you see her,
potential,
she's
might take a little
impactful.
bit longer from my experience. Like if I have a Farah on my team to go like, oh yes, we're gonna win for sure. Like I would have a ZENYATTA guy now, but I can definitely see the potential there. And I think if I would want to start playing DPS kind of and playing Farah, I think I would take me like some time to learn her. But definitely I would enjoy the gameplay way more than before. Rather than staying in the back and just shooting non-stop, you know?
Yeah, and that's what you're leaning into, right? Like a lot of times when we do these reworks, we want to sort of like focus in on a play style that we think is an optimally fun way to play the hero. And that was when we had seen players like actually kind of play that dive Farah and get into the back lines and things like that. It's like, how do we enable more of the player base to play this way? Because we think
To
this
go
is
in
one of
front and
the,
stuff,
we
be
think it's
involved.
one of the ways to really enjoy Farah. It's also one of the ways where if you're going against Farah,
I like
it's
the way they
not
looked at that.
right? It's
That's pretty good.
It's not
Good,
this
good.
like skybox thing that's happening, and you're just like, well, we don't have the right composition. We're not limiting the effective hero pool of the enemy team. I feel like this is a bit more open in terms of what you can play against this Farah too.
How did the projectile size buff impact accuracy compared to season 8?
Yeah, so everyone's
Good question.
everyone's up, obviously. All the projectiles are
So
bigger.
everybody benefited from it.
Yes,
just that's-
everyone benefit from it. It just matters what sort of classification you're in. I think for a lot of heroes, like let's say Ashe and Cassidy, you're like 6 to 7%.
6 or 7%.
In terms of, and that's a like a raw number going up, right? Not
6
not
or 7%
relative,
across the
right?
board.
So,
That's a
but then
lot.
for shotgun heroes, it's like 2 to 4%. For our high spread hit scan heroes, it's like 3 to 5%. Those are like the Malgas of the world, right? In terms of the wrecking balls of the world, right? And then you have
3 to 5 to 6 to 7.
3%, so a little bit less for them. But I think hit scan in particular is benefiting the most in that classification of like
No surprise.
Ashe, Cassidy, Soldier, and then Widowmaker.
What about Widowmaker?
Yeah, Widowmaker's at some places like a 9 to 10%. Right?
So it's on the higher end of
yes,
the accuracy increases.
it's quite high. And
No. You don't understand how scary that is. Because the best widows, chat, okay. You gotta understand for years. The way you kind of were trying to figure out if someone was cheating or not was you looked at their VOD or their profile and you saw their scoped crit accuracy. That's why you always see like the widows that are cheating like constantly with scope in and they're trying to shoot nothing constantly, is they're trying to lower their scope crit because there's a number. The number historically was always somewhere around 30%. Anything beyond like 31 to 33, like unless they're like pro player level, they're cheating. Right? Like you're at that point, you're getting close. So if their scope crit around 30% is best players, right? That might have changed with Overwatch 2 coming out. I'm talking Overwatch 1. That was what the number was. But you add an extra 10% to that, right? An extra 10%. All of a sudden, you're now getting way more kills a fight. Because if let's say you only hit a headshot 3 out of 10 shots, now you're hitting a headshot 4 or 5 shots out of 10 shots. That's crazy. Especially in a game like Overwatch 2 where like that pick could win you the game easily, you know? It's like, holy shit, that's insane.
one of the things that we find really interesting is this also changes of where you're in the game in terms of where your rank is, right? So we see the most benefit around like Plat, Diamond, Master.
When we say 30%, chat, that means they've played a lot of games. It's an average, okay? You're like, oh, I had 40%. Okay, you played like 3 games or whatever, you know, against like no shields, no dive, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to take a lot of shots. It can happen, right? But like, there's other stats you look at. I'm telling you, like, they've played a lot of games historically. They play a ton of Widow. Been playing it for a long time. You know what I mean? Like, there's numbers you look for, right? And it's like, there's like a suspect test on where the numbers lie. 10% higher or 11% higher is insane.
In terms of accuracy increase,
Let's back up a little bit.
at some places like a 9 to 10%.
So
right?
it's on the higher end of
Yes,
the accuracy increases.
it's quite high. And one of the things that we find really interesting is this also changes of where you're in the game in terms of where your rank is, right? So we see the most benefit around like Plat, Diamond, Master in terms of accuracy increase, and then it falls off a little bit at Bronze and it falls off a little bit at GM, right? And GM, it's more, you know, they were hitting some shots, but it's really it's really about the movement. It's really about the movement that's occurring, you know, at that high level of play. Bronze doesn't benefit as much as, say, Plat, Diamond, Master. That's where we're seeing the highest increases.
Wow,
And
Plat
that
players
difference
dying
is
to
like
Widow
1 to
more often.
2%, in terms of like how that differs. But at a Widow, we're talking like she scales a little bit differently, right? She actually scales even more at the higher end, like 3% more.
So you're telling me I'm really bad at Widowmaker. So statistically speaking,
Wait,
if I start
wait,
playing Widow
what?
right now, I'd be landing more shots clear.
Wait, hang on. So across the board, it's 10% higher, but then on the high end, it's an extra 3% higher? Holy Jesus Christ.
Clearly?
Yeah, I mean, for a little bit of time.
For a little bit of
time. It's something we're looking at. We think it's a little bit too high than it is currently. So we're probably going to lower the projectile size there for Widowmaker.
Okay.
To be fair, I was not a Widow nerfer. I was not calling for it. I thought that if Zen got nerfed, which means that you can get there easier on tanks, your tanks could pressure Widows a lot easier, which means that, you know, there's more counterplay. Because currently at the moment, the counterplay is your Widow is better, or your Zen hits a 5-orb across the map. If you play Ball, yeah, you can get there, but if they play like Zen Lucio, they just kick you and boop you away. You just explode, right? You need the Tracer follow-up or something like that. So if Zen wasn't as oppressive, you could have more counterplay. That was my thinking before nerfing her projectile size, but apparently it's so insane that like they got to do it right now. That's crazy.
Could you please raise your microphone?
Well, hang on. So you say Sombra is not counterplay, but here's the thing though. Sombra is, absolutely, but with the extra health increase, Sombra can't insta-kill Widow the same way as before, right? And if she's sitting with her Lucio Zen or Brig Zen or Lucio Brig or whatever they're playing like back there, there's enough time, or Kiri, enough time to save her, right? Like, you have to be instant, which is what the patch before was, where, like, Widow was unplayable versus Sombra. It wasn't impossible. But now, like, there's just enough time to save her, and that difference makes it so that, like, Widow can keep doing a lot, you know. I'm with you though. I feel you.
A bit higher up. Give me a second.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. I don't know why it just goes down. Who is the surprise of the patch?
Surprises patch. I think another one's Moira. You know, we talked a little bit about her earlier, but it kind of makes sense though, right? So Grasp gets about a 30% increase in damage, and then everyone got like a 25% increase in health. So
it should be.
She's actually just better. Her time to kill and everything. She's doing quite well there.
Moira's time to kill is
I would
faster
say,
now. Wow.
I think surprising in terms of volatility, in terms of where some heroes, like how deeply some of them fell off. And in our next hotfix, we're going to be looking to pick some of these heroes up, right? So we see heroes like Junkrat and Roadhog that actually are struggling, right? But at the same time, we see heroes like Ball. I think going into it, you know, Ball is one of those heroes that we didn't expect to see have such a rise so quickly in terms of where the meta went. We knew speed was really good internally. I think Lucio in particular was something we were like, okay, there's going to be a lot of like speed going on. But I didn't necessarily expect it was going to be with Ball in particular. Rather, like maybe it was going to stay in the Junker Queen aspect, this brawly sort of thing.
Like more like Steenkoms.
Ramatra, you know, some of those heroes. So, but Ball in particular is like, you know, seeing a lot more play.
So,
I mean, for context, the reason why Ball is being played more than anything right now is because that dive, but also sustainability, right? Zen and Lucio are so good right now, and with their boops and their ability to stay alive and kill potential, there's not much healing, right? So like Diva and like he was saying, like Diva Winston are really good, but the problem with Diva Winston is like they need a little bit of healing to survive. Ball is completely able to stay alive on his own with health packs and whatnot. Especially play Sombra, right, and you hack with health packs. Ball can be almost completely autonomous the entire time. That's why Ball is like so good right now, right? But I think that could change if like there's some like Zen changes, for example.
Buffing/nerfing, and
I still think it'd be really good though.
We'll be seeing the next patch.
Yeah, so we're targeting hopefully by tomorrow for our next hotfix.
Tomorrow?
Hotfix tomorrow?
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully,
Oh my god,
yeah.
that's fast.
So one of the things that we're looking at in this patch is what are the outliers, but also like projectile sizes. How many of them are too big? We're not buffing any projectile sizes. We're going to take some of them down, and then health. I think there's one here in particular that has too much health. That's ZENYATTA.
Zenyatta, ooh.
But overall, that's like Diva, Roadhog, and Diva and Mercy are in that department of, well, later on we might do some other changes to these heroes, but Diva, Pilot, and Mercy.
Like I said, they probably weren't going to touch Discord yet. Discord needs to be touched. It needs something. But they're not ready for it, so they're going to do something quick. They're going to take away the extra 25 health. That's what it's going to be.
Mercy, Blaster, like there's
the
this is really they're really big. Here in that department. That's ZENYATTA.
Zenyatta,
But overall, that's like Diva, Roadhog, and Diva and Mercy are in that department of, well, later on we might do some other changes to these heroes, but Diva, Pilot, and Mercy, Blaster, like there's they're really big. We want to go down on some of those.
So this would be like the last day in which I could go like full DPS mode with Mercy, I guess, if I can get some kills. Yeah.
I mean, it's still gonna be pretty big, right?
Still.
Just not as big as it is.
Okay, good to know. I'm gonna play Mercy after.
So Diva, Zarya, we're looking at. We're also looking at Roadhog for DPS. It's a number of heroes like Junkrat, Hanzo. Junkrat's one of those heroes that's just performing quite poorly, so bring him up a little bit. Looking at Tracer, and in terms of her performance.
So it's kind of like a big hotfix.
It's bigger than we've normally done, but we don't want this to be a hotfix where it's like something we're instantly like buffing up a hero to make that hero meta or something along those lines. But it's really like, okay, what are some of the outliers that we're seeing, right? There's some others in there. I said Zenyatta's in there, Lucio's in there, Mercy's in there. Olari, I think, is a hero that really needs a lot of help.
Yes.
So, Lucio's in there too.
So a little bit of help to her too. So it will be
small
pretty
Lucio
sizable,
nerf probably.
And then we'll see how it all goes.
Maybe to the lockout.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Boop lockout maybe.
Are there any plans to adjust the DPS passive, or do you need more data?
Well, I think we need more time for
Ilari needs one
players
though,
to
for
really
sure.
Adjust and feel it.
Ryan gets fucked though. You're not wrong.
Understand how to play with it, how to play around it. So we're not going to touch any numbers of the DPS passive right now. It's a really important piece of just how the game.
No, I agree. Lucio,
season 9.
Lucio is mostly fine. The only thing that's annoying is how much the lockout is on the boop. I have no problem with boop being buffed and being stronger, but how long you can't do anything versus the boop is really annoying. You know what I mean? Like you none of your abilities work for a second. So like that's why if you get booped, if you're flying on Diva and you get booped, you literally fly backwards. Like your entire fucking flight basically goes backwards. Can you explain lockout? So lockout basically means when you get booped, you no longer have control over your character, no matter what. If you have a movement ability, it doesn't matter. Like I was saying with Diva, you're flying in a straight line, you get booped, instead of like boop, and then you just keep flying, it's like boop. You know what I mean? So it's like, instead of like a big jolt back and then being able to fight it, it's jolt back, but it continues, and you fall, like the momentum keeps going until a certain point hits in which the lockout ends, and then your boosters take over again. Not every character has movement abilities, right? So like, let's say you're playing something like Ryan. If you get booped, it's even worse because like that entire time you can't fight against it at all with your movement abilities. And then the second it finally locks out, you're not getting anywhere near them, right? So like, if you're playing a character like Diva and you're flying at him and he boops you, I have no problem with going back further from the boop, but how far it boops you, plus you can't fight against it at all for that entire time, that sucks.
Mm-hmm. It is the thing that helps end engagements, right? Like, and it's actually one of the things we really enjoy about having it is that it allows DPS to feel like they're more aligned with.
But I agree though. I think Lucio's okay.
What their role is, they are the instigators of ending, and getting kills, fights, getting eliminations, and that's where we want to position them, and I think that's been really successful. I think some of the things that we're looking at is just like, okay, is the number completely correct? With time, we'll look at that. Also, visibility of it.
In terms of DPS passive, yeah.
Yeah, there's some things we want to do there in terms of
like UI probably.
Who gets to see this. It is something that comes on and off quite a lot. And the way we think about it is there's this hierarchy of who needs to know that information, and like in terms of like how cluttered it can become. The person who shoots the enemy knows that it's applied, so they know that. They need to know that first, and they get that response, right? But then if you're affected by it, I think is like the next level down, and you need to know that. So we're going to be looking at just how we can apply that in your 1P and do it in like a subtle way, so it doesn't feel like there's something always like, you know, it doesn't need this giant effect, but something that's nice and subtle. So we're looking at that.
Would supports be able to see it too?
I think that's the next layer down,
Yeah,
right?
that's like the third one.
Yeah, I think that's like the next layer down in terms of the hierarchy is you're healing the person who has it on, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And we tested with some things like that with it in your 3P, and it did become like it started to felt like there was a lot of UI in place and very cluttered. We're going to start with putting into the person who's affected into their 1P. And we think this will benefit tanks especially. And knowing when they're going to be like receiving less healing,
So
and hopefully they take better positions and things like that, right?
So they're gonna use that so that they're not gonna go like, I need more healing, I need more healing. You have an explanation and stuff.
Or like know to maybe get around cover. You know, it's a little bit of information.
Theoretically speaking, would you be able to see it in replay maybe, so that you know you can vote review it and stuff?
We'd have to look at that. I think you should be able to though.
That would be great because
Yeah.
like a lot of the times I guess tanks will go.
I talked about this with you guys a couple days ago, and it's like, this is all UI design stuff, and the reason this is probably doesn't exist right now is because they were like, okay, we want to make this cool change to the game. We want to add this new passive, you know, the debuff, but UI and design takes a long time, and it's like they could put it off for another season because the design isn't ready, or they could just f*** it and send it, and then wait and then design catches up later, and that's probably what they ended up doing, which is the right call. But like, you know, designing it for like the replay viewer, designing it so it doesn't look cluttered on your screen, that kind of stuff takes a lot of work. It's a lot to do.
Are going like, I'm taking too much damage, am I being healed, and then I guess that would be like an explanation for them to check it out afterwards. So you have this in mind with the visual indicator for the DPS passive, and right now you said like tomorrow with the hotfix we're not going to be seeing changes to the DPS passive. I guess just gathering more data, see if the nerfs, how the game's going to feel after the nerfs and the buffs and stuff. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think like, you know, ZENYATTA is like a really big player in the meta right now, and it's also, he has so much health that it can feel like, well, even when you like, what we want for ZENYATTA is once you get to ZENYATTA, that's not where ZENYATTA can be as like survivable, and also he's so super survivable, and he has too much in terms of like actually being, I would say, a bit of a nuisance when you're next to him.
So we're
going to reduce the knockback on the kick too by a little bit, because it's quite high. And I think for like heroes like Reinhardt and other heroes, like they get in and then
they just kick away, just like
kicks them away. So we want to reduce that.
Oh,
so
Alec, you're kind of cooking right now. I'm not gonna lie to you.
You get in, and it's gonna be ZENYATTA. This is where he's vulnerable, right?
So it's like you play in the distance, but if you get close to Zen, he should die.
Yeah.
Or
Now I don't mind if Ryan doesn't get a buff, because this is probably one of the most oppressive things to him, other than maybe Orisa.
at least need a lot of help to.
Orisa is going to be definitely difficult to deal with, but that's okay. That's part of the counter swap meta at this point of playing a tank. I understand. You know what? I won't bitch about the Orisa counter swap. I understand. It's fucking annoying, but that's the way it goes. The Zen, though, beating my fucking ass, and then I get next to him and kicks me to Narnia, that shit blows. So you know what? They cooking.
They're alive.
He'll still have that strong melee kick. It's not like we're not ripping it out completely. We're going to reduce the knockback, though.
You're not changing the icon either, right?
He'll still have the icon.
Okay,
yeah.
because the icon is super cool. Always
Yeah.
loved, always wanted one. So now I have like some more general questions. Have you ever thought about implementing reworked out abilities into new heroes? For example, the old shield generator or Torbjorn's armor packs?
Yeah, I mean, we've played with things like that internally a bunch, where it's like, I really miss this ability. How can we bring it back? How can we build like a kit around it? I think one in particular that the team is fond of is, you know, Orisa's old right click.
The pull.
Yeah, because two-stage abilities I think are quite difficult to get right in terms of you launch something and then it does something else, and there's two inputs to it, right? That can be difficult to control, can be difficult to actually have rateability on it, and we thought that actually did a pretty good job of it. So it's something I think we would totally explore again if we came back to it. Nothing in the works right now, but that's an ability I think the team is fond of.
That's like one ability that you all love.
Yeah, totally.
Who is the hardest hero to balance for every goal?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think it's, you know, if we look at some of the heroes that we reworked, I think some of those were up there in terms of hardest heroes to balance. And the way I interpret that question would be,
Sombra's probably a good one.
What heroes do we hear the most about in terms of, you know, how good they can be before we start seen people like getting up in arms about them a little bit, right? So like the Sombras of the world,
Yeah.
the Doomfists of the world,
Yeah.
you know, things like that, where they can be a little bit more difficult to balance because of how players react to those heroes. I think also in the tank role, you know, we were looking at, you know, how some of those heroes can become a little bit easier to play with and around, and you feel good about it. You know, characters like Doomfist, like Wrecking Ball, they can be a little bit harder for some players to actually understand what
Yeah,
to do with
you
them.
need like a lot of
Coordination,
yeah.
especially,
Everybody
right?
has to be on the same page. and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. So those can be a little bit more difficult. But I think some of the heroes we've seen that get reworked was either because of, you know, some mechanics that are very difficult to balance, like stealth, or one-shots, right, or combos in particular for Roadhog, you know, hook and then shoot, like hook, shoot, melee being the kill. That was pretty difficult. And, you know, once he lost that, he was really struggling, right?
What are you going to give him afterwards?
So, you know, we reintroduced it in sort of this two-step way with the trap and hooking through the trap, and then you're able to shoot then. But it actually has just made him a lot easier to balance in that light as well. And also making some things like take a breather on a resource that
Interesting.
opened that up too. So
I don't know.
I would say I think
cool.
Widowmaker is hard, but we think she's in a pretty good spot right now. And we're going to make a few adjustments here and there. But overall, I think she's in a really good spot at the moment.
What are some reworks that you decided against?
I'm assuming that meaning like post-patch.
I wouldn't say decided against.
Postponed, maybe?
Yeah, postponed or like reevaluated what we want to do with those reworks. I think one in particular that comes to mind that we're looking at right now is Reaper, right? And it's about how big that set of changes is going to be one day, or how small it's going to be. We don't think and we've played around with things like a right click on Reaper, like secondary fire, and it doesn't necessarily really fit completely. We we don't want to add buttons just to add buttons. We're still looking at like modernizing some of his other abilities, like Shadow Step. Like, how can we make that a more interesting ability? How can we sort of like bring that ability into the future?
Into Overwatch 2.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know why, but I thought like Mirage. You know, like Mirage can throw like different different versions of himself. Imagine Reaper could do that, and you all faded in different directions.
Set of changes going to be,
and you got to pick
one
of them.
At the end of the day, just be a change to Shadow Step, but it's a really polished thing that we want to do. You know, we wouldn't call that a complete rework. We'd call that like an ability rework.
I don't know why. That feels like it would work for him.
Yeah, so that's one of the things I think through testing, we kind of change what even our expectations of it. I think one of the things like going to season 9 that we had sort of adapted, maybe we were a little bit too conservative with this from our team's perspective, was like the Pharah changes. You know, one of the things we didn't call it a full rework. We specifically like didn't call it that when we were talking about it publicly and things of that nature. And we always looked at like an update or something along those lines, because there is a new ability, right?
Yeah.
There's the Jet Jazz, but a lot of times you're kind of playing similar too. Even though you have this whole new ability suite, you know, Pharah still flies in the air, still shoots.
More of
right?
like a hero update, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. So it's one of those things too where we also sort of figure out like how we're defining these things. Like, what does rework mean to people? It means tons of different things.
What's the definition?
Yeah, that's not an easy
people.
thing to do either. I feel for him on that one.
Yeah, I think the Sabra one, I think everyone can agree that was a rework. But we'll see in time like how we sort of talk about these things too.
I think they learned that from the Roadhog.
What is the most?
Because I remember seeing so many people on Twitter when talking about the Roadhog rework, they're like, "Oh my god, they call this a rework? You just got an extra button." And even I was like, "Well, yeah, I kind of expected the Roadhog rework to be a bit more," which is still true. I think for a lot of people, they expected more out of it. Which is why they probably have learned their lesson now and are like, maybe we shouldn't call certain things reworks, you know?
Be the goal, at least in season 9.
Yeah.
That teaches you something they've been learning, which is very different than old Overwatch.
So for season 9, we're seeing a little bit of change. I think damage is getting more popular, especially as you move up in the ranks. I think for a while there, support at the higher ranks was the most popular role. But as we're seeing through season 9, damage is becoming more popular at those ranks in particular. Yeah,
So
it sort of does this like damage has always been popular at lower ranks, right? Especially like new players love to play soldier and like, heroes
everybody
like
just
that.
looks in DPSs, I guess.
Yeah.
I was a DPS main before, but
Oh,
I
really?
realized,
Okay.
yeah, I played Genji, I played some Mufara even,
Nice.
and then I saw that I was doing that good, and eventually I got bullied into playing support, but I had a lot of fun. So like when I started
Real me with tank.
Nice. Yeah. So but what you'll see is, you know, you'll see this trend where it's like it starts to damage and it starts to go down, and support starts here, and then they sort of like cross, right? But typically, like as we've seen like over the course of Overwatch 2, now what we're seeing is like damage actually ends up staying higher. They meet a little bit in the middle, and then damage ends up being higher even at the highest ranks. So right now, damage is I think that's expected. They probably got the most out of this patch, and I think their value and what they're able to
for sure.
put their thumb on a fight and really like kind of turn the tide. That's increased, right? And we're seeing players really flock to that role in particular.
And I think I got just one more. Wait, let me just double check. Okay, just one more question. Will we be seeing in-game stats for heroes? Because right now we have to use external sites and workshop codes to see like how much damage we're seeing in-game, how much healing there is for a hero.
That's something we want to do. Definitely want to do. I don't know when we're gonna do it. I don't know. This is not even like started on this, but it's something we talk about a little bit, that we want some sort of like advanced F1 screen down the line, where you can stay in there. F1 screen still tells you like what the ability does in like a nice short sentence or two. It's sort of succinct. And it's like, okay, I understand what my hero is supposed to do. And then elsewhere, we want to like show you fall off. We want to show you damage, but finding like
more specific numbers and stuff.
Yeah, and finding where this is a good place for that is maybe it's like there's like a button in training room, or it's like actually it's just like a button here on the F1 screen that we can press, right? So we'll explore like what the best way to do that is. But I think as we mature, we want to make sure like players have tools in the game to actually understand what's going on in Overwatch. So that's one of the things I think would benefit there especially.
I can't wait. I can't wait to just press the key or whatever it's gonna be, and then like just see the numbers and stuff. Because a lot of the times I want to double check.
Hopefully, like, and this, as I said, like something we're just like talking about it, right?
Just like planning. It's still in the planning phase, but it's something that you kind of want to do.
I think one day we want to do this, yes.
Cool.
Okay, well, those were all of the questions, Alec. Thank you so much for
That's pretty good.
Chat. Can we get some claps in the chat? Cool. This was absolutely awesome.
Thank you, everybody.
Learned a lot already.
Keep enjoying the patch.
Yeah, thank you. I can't wait to see tomorrow how it's going to feel. And maybe I'm not going to be playing only ZENYATTA,
So how is Zen buff before even
Maybe I'm
Ryan?
going to try some
I think with Zen changes, Ryan will be much better.
That tip, that Widowmaker guy now is kind of like...
Ryan is really held back because of Zen.
Some Pharah as well.
Arista too, but mostly
I'm
Zen.
excited to see. Excited for us to show you all the other stuff later on this week, so that'll be fun too.
Oh,
yeah. All right,
wait.
Cheers, man.
Thank you. You have a good day.
Have a good one.
Thank you again.
Thanks, y'all.
That was actually insanely good. So patch tomorrow is thinking we've learned. Yeah, Ryan didn't get a buff, obviously. Although, what's very funny? Talking about, hang on, where's my tier list? Hold up, I got it around here somewhere. Let me see if I can find it. Is it over here? Yeah, I know it's very funny talking about this tier list. Getting a buff, getting a buff, getting a buff, getting some kind of change. They're looking at giving changes. Honestly, performing really well. This one actually was underperforming apparently. Getting a nerfs. I don't know what else. Getting nerfs. But yeah. Either way though, it seems it seems actually it's actually pretty spot on. Close. There's a few outliers, but it seems pretty close overall. I will say, yeah, there's obviously the initial knee jerk is like, oh my god, Ryan didn't get anything and Rahog is. I do genuinely think Ryan will be better when Zen gets some changes. Zen is the gatekeeper, because you got to realize Zen and Lucy are being played together. If Zen is not as oppressive, that means you probably either play Zen comps, which will be like your Ana Zen, your Brig Zen, your Bap Zen, stuff like that, poke. While the Rush would then have the Lucio, Moira, Ryan, right? So then you run at the run at the Zen, and you'll make it there. But because you'll have healing, like in the current comps, you don't have healing. It doesn't work. And then when you get there, hopefully you're not getting kicked away as often, and having less health means you can kill them easier. I think it'll probably be a lot better. So we'll see. Overall though, this patch has been super good. They actually kind of knocked it out of the park. Obviously some outliers, but things have been really fun. I look forward to tomorrow. So yeah, we'll see how that goes.